Congresswoman, thank you so much for making the time today, and congratulations on being recognized as Rails to Trails Conservancy's 2020 Rail Trail Champion. We are thrilled to honor you. And just so you know, a little background on the award, we bestow this award nationally and annually in recognition of someone who has made significant contributions to the trail movement, someone who has gone above and beyond for trails, walking, and biking in our country. And we are pleased to honor you for your long advocacy on behalf of trails and safe spaces to walk and bike in the district, and most importantly, your leadership on the Invest in America Act. It positions active transportation so strongly at the federal level. You will join others who have advocated for trails, walking, and biking among their peers in Congress, including former Representatives Tom Petri from Wisconsin and Representative Jim Oberstar from Minnesota. And especially this year, as millions have flocked to the outdoors as they cope with the pandemic, federal leadership on behalf of trails is critical. The pandemic has made quite clear that while trails and safe spaces to walk and bike are essential to every single community, the nation's trail system does not go far enough to reach enough people. Representative Norton, in your role on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee's Highways and Transit Subcommittee, you brought significant influence to shaping the Invest in America Act. That bill included transformative investments in trails, walking, and biking that were largely adopted when the Moving Forward Act was passed this summer. When you think about that bill, what are you most proud of in terms of how it can impact communities and Washington, D.C.?
Well, I was particularly pleased that I was chair of the subcommittee this year that got one of the few bills out, the Highways and Transit bill. In fact, it was the only major bill to get out. And that bill, of course, has all of my work on trails. That work, we call that bill Moving Forward. It's HR 2, and that says something about, when you give a number that high, it tells you something about the priority of the bill, number 2. So I'm proud of the unprecedented provisions that allow for innovation in climate change. I believe that is maybe the most urgent problem facing our country and the world. I'm proud of all of the work that virtually finished our trails in the District of Columbia.
All of those represent such important options. And I think when we think about what people in the country need and want, a lot of times it's transportation option, which unlocks so much other opportunity for them. Options, as you've noted, are woven throughout the bill. When you think about transportation option and you think about trails, why do you think trails are critical to a healthy transportation future?
Trails are critical, particularly today, to transportation. You heard me mention climate change. Well, trails encourage other forms of transportation. They're also, when you consider this pandemic, much needed because they give us a way to be outdoors without close contact with one another. So trails are good in the generally, but they are particularly important when you consider what we're going through now in our city and in our country.
So you've talked about climate a lot here, and the Moving Forward Act itself includes a lot of specifics about climate change, which was really bold for the House to push forward. You have long been a champion for climate, and part of why we're so excited to honor you in this way, because we see such a direct relationship between trails and climate. How would you describe the relationship between the two?
Oh, the relationship is endemic now. Extreme weather conditions or extreme weather events themselves can destroy trails. So here in DC, we have seen more short-term, high-intensity storms. And we see that reflected in flooding in parts of my favorite place to go, Rock Creek Park, and the tidal basin, the historic tidal basin, our monumental site in the middle of the city. So transportation, though, is a leading cause of carbon pollution. So if we want to keep our trails accessible, we have to deal with climate change and to build a clean transportation sector.
I love that. And, more and more, I was part of a conversation you were in a while back and heard you talk about DC becoming known for its biking and walking culture and the trails that are all throughout the city. DC has certainly asserted itself with your leadership as a leader in the trail movement, including as the eastern terminus for the Great American Rail Trail, which is connecting the country across nearly 4,000 miles. And we were so glad to have you with us to celebrate when we launched that National Trail Vision in May of 2019.
Yes.
When you think about a trail of that scope, what do you think the real impact could be on the country?
Once we become a leader in trails, and that means we're going to have an effect well beyond our own city. So I think that it's a way to incentivize more Americans to get outside and exercise. I take a half-hour walk here. I'm cooped in doing teleworking. I go for a half-hour walk every single day. It's been snowing outdoors. I think it'll let up enough for me to go even today. So these trails, in the best of times and the worst of times, encourage getting out and exercising in a positive and healthy way. So they serve a purpose no matter what, and they particularly serve a purpose today.
So how does having the Great American Rail Trail in DC, this national trail connected to DC, support the city as it looks to bring more walking and biking routes to more neighborhoods?
Oh my goodness, yes. I encourage my own residents and visitors who come to DC, and we get millions of visitors each year in normal times, to take advantage of the many transportation options. I'm always telling them there's more than one way to get around the district. So I have encouraged and seen great uptake on Capital Bike Share, for example, where we have a place where you can simply go and rent a bike. The bike is sitting right there for you to go. It's very much used here. I am a great supporter of e-scooters and mobility on demand, and we are a leader in mobility on demand rather than going the usual transportation. It's easier than ever to exercise the Great American Trail. The city touches everything because the trail, in effect, touches everything from the steps of the U.S. Capitol, where I go most days, to the Capitol Crescent Trail, what I'm most proud of in Georgetown. It's a way to experience different parts of the city while staying off of our crowded streets.
I love that. And one question just to close, what is your favorite trail in DC, if you're allowed to have one?
Well, it's hard for me to have a trail that is better than Rock Creek Park. And that's because I'm a third generation Washingtonian, have regarded its trails as central to my own childhood and existence as a resident ever since I have lived here, which is all of my life and the life of my family. So while we have many trails that I'm proud of, like the Anacostia River Trail, that's one that I have worked very hard on. I worked very hard on Kingman and Heritage Islands Park. That's a trail that most people weren't much aware of at the footbridge of RFK. But if you ask me, my own favorite would have to be Rock Creek Park with its many trails. Remember, Rock Creek Park is so rare in a big city. 32 miles of parks right in the middle of the city. You can't miss it. So if you're driving through the city, you'll say, goodness, one day I want to get off and see what that's all about.
And so many more people have gotten to experience it this year with the closing of the roads for walking and biking, which has been really exciting. And I know a lot of folks are advocating to try to keep that long term and make even more space there in the park. So we'll see where that goes. Well, Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time.
I want to thank you very much for this recognition. It means a great deal to me to see that the work I've been doing consistently in Congress is appreciated